Hey, what's up everybody? This is Osterberg501 and today I want to go over 10 more elite legendary weapons for Outriders. Now before we get into the video, less than 5% of people that watch my videos are subscribed to my channel. So make sure to subscribe if you want to keep up with all of my uploads. And all of these are legendary weapons that haven't been shown in any footage by the developers, so if you don't want to be spoiled by any of these, and if you're someone that likes to just see the weapon for the first time when you loot it yourself, I'd recommend not watching this video. And I also have 2 other videos going over 10 additional leaked legendary weapons, so if you want to see more, I'd recommend going and watching those as well. So first off, we have the ANOMALY EFFIGY, a legendary pump shotgun, and the tier 3 for this is Concentration Blast. Killing shots cause enemies to explode, doing 200,000 damage multiplied by the number of enemies within a 5-meter radius around the original target. Now I'm not sure why there's a number, it is 0 right now, in front of the amount of enemies around the target. I'm not sure if that's supposed to be a number and it's currently set incorrectly or if that's not supposed to be there. But it's seeming like, depending on how many enemies around the target killed, it will just multiply the damage of the explosion by how many enemies are there. I'm not exactly certain how this is going to work. Like if there's one additional enemy, will it not cause additional damage, or is it going to be multiplied by some preset number? So if there's one target there, is it going to increase it by some set number that this mod has? It's going to require some testing, but the effect itself, if you don't consider the actual damage, is a really cool effect. And for specific builds, this will probably be one of the strongest mods for killing groups of enemies, because there are some abilities in the game that pull all enemies together. So if you have this, you kill one of those enemies that are pulled together, there's like 10 enemies there, it's going to blow up and probably kill everything. So this could be incredibly strong. Then the tier 1 is weakening bullets. Shots inflict weakness to enemies, cooldown of 8 seconds. Next, we have a BLIGHTBEARER, a legendary rifle, and the tier 3 is Bursts of Decay. Critical shots cause explosions that inflict toxic on enemies within a 5-meter radius. Now, we have seen this tier 3 mod on another legendary weapon in the first video that I went over, leaked legendary weapons, and there are a few additional weapons in these leaks that share their tier 3 mods. I'm not certain if that's going to be like that on the weapons when the game is fully released and you get these weapons in game normally. All of these leaked weapons were obtained by not legitimate means, so I'm not sure if that messed up some of the tier 3 mods or some of the mods on the weapons, or if they do actually share these mods in the full release of the game. Some of the weapons do seem like these mods would be the mods they're supposed to have on them, so I'm not certain. Now this mod, like I said when I went over a weapon with it before, this probably isn't going to be incredibly strong without a build centered around toxic. It's decent being able to hit a crit on something and then everything gets inflicted with toxic. That's some decent extra damage, but I don't think this is going to be better than a lot of the other tier 3 mods until you have a build that focuses on toxic. Then this could be an incredibly strong tier 3 mod. And the tier 2 is Resistance Breaker. Shots decrease your target's resistance by 35% for 6 seconds. Next, we have Damascus Offering, and the tier 3 for this is Claymore Torrent. Shots damage 4 enemies within a 3-meter radius with anomaly blades, dealing 113,000 damage. So this is essentially every bullet will ricochet to enemies within a certain radius and deal a ton of extra damage. So even baseline, this weapon just gets damage procs on every shot, which could be good, and it could be really good depending on how it can synergize with some other of the mods in the game. Now this is a smaller radius of only 3 meters, but that's still good enough to where if enemies are a little bit grouped up, they should be getting hit with it. And I'm also not certain if this is kind of like a bouncing mechanic. So if you hit the first enemy, then there's an enemy 3 meters away from that, we'll bounce to that one, and then the next bounce will count off of the second enemy. So you could technically get 12 meters away from the initial target with the bouncing anomaly blade. Or is it something that you shoot the first enemy and then it's just deals damage in 3 meters? I'm not certain if it's like a bouncing mechanic like I said, or if it's just in that radius and that's all that counts. Then the other mod is Anomaly Enhancement. Receive a passive firepower bonus equal to 30% of your anomaly power. And next we have a Body Snatcher, the legendary pump action shotgun, and the tier 3 for this is Body Snatcher. Killing shots teleport another enemy to the place where the previous one died. Works within a 25-meter radius of the target. Now overall, this seems like a kind of weak tier 3 mod. It seems like it's interesting, but not that strong. The only thing I could think of that would make this really strong is having some type of effect that's area based. So say if something is placed underneath a target that does damage over time, and then you could kill an enemy, you just place a thing under, another one teleports onto it and starts taking damage from the area damage. Or the other thing I could think of is having, say, like a Trickster time slow, and you kill enemies on the time slow and it teleports a new enemy into your slowing bubble. So maybe that could be something that synergizes well with this enough to use. But overall, unless there's something like that, I don't see this mod being used as much as most of the other mods. And the other mod is Soul Devourer. Killing shots regenerate 8,000 points of your health. Next, we have Funeral Pyre, a legendary automatic shotgun. And the tier 3 for this is Shadow Comet. Shots call down a comet, doing 100,000 damage to enemies within a 3.5 meter radius. Now, the first thing about this mod is how much is it actually going to proc? Because if it was every shot, there would be just comets being called down everywhere. I'm assuming there's some amount of proc rate to it because it also doesn't have a set cooldown on the mod like most mods with cooldowns have. But past that, the damage is pretty good, and it also damages everything in a 3.5 meter radius. So if you shoot something, it just drops this comet that then does a decent sized AoE to add some additional single target damage, but also be able to have that pretty decent AoE damage with it. And then the other mod is Resistance Breaker. Shots decrease the target's resistance by 35% for 6 seconds. Next, we have the Imploder, a legendary double gun, and the tier 3 for this is Deadly Disturbance. Critical shots activate an unstable anomaly effect in your enemy, causing him to explode, dealing 370,000 damage to other enemies within a 5 meter radius. This seems to be close to the same as one of the Pyromancer abilities, where you pretty much target an enemy, inflict burn on them, and when you kill them, they blow up, dealing damage to everything in the area. This seems kind of like that. I think it's a little bit different because it doesn't seem to work or have synergies off of burn. It seems to just be more of just a massive damage explosion on an enemy. And also, this is only critical shots, so you don't actually have to kill an enemy to do it. And it also kind of has a little bit of weird wording because it activates this unstable anomaly on enemies. I'm wondering if it's just you hit a crit, it instantly blows up and does all of this damage in a big radius. Because first, it depends on the proc rate, if it has a high proc rate or not, and if there's some type of timer with it, because it sounds like something that you would crit someone and then it would have like a timer, then it blows up. So you could possibly shoot a bunch of different enemies, get their like timer for the activatable active, and then they all blow up one after the other. That could possibly be something that works with a mod like this, even though it doesn't specify if it works like that. Then the other mod is Ruler of Leeches. Killing shots increase a weapon leech by 20% for 20 seconds. Next, we have SHELROG'S Excrescence, a legendary double gun, and the tier 3 mod for this is Ultimate Burning Bullets. Shots inflict burn on enemies. Again, it's another one of these tier 3 mods that just applies a status effect, but the tier 3 versions don't have cooldowns, so these type of mods, even though they're kind of boring, they're incredibly strong, especially when you synergize it with specific character abilities and other specific builds. You could use this on a Pyromancer, inflict burn on everything, and then use the Pyromancer ability that hits everything in a massive radius and does a ton of extra damage if they're burning. So there's a massive amount of synergies, and I think a lot of builds are going to have one of these tier 3 mods that just applies a status effect on it somewhere on one of their weapons. And the other mod is Hot Blood. Shots pass through enemies whose health is below 50%, ricocheting to 3 enemies within a 5 meter radius and inflicting burn. Just additionally inflicting burn with the tier 1 mod on this as well. Next, we have Spirit Hunter, a legendary bolt action sniper, and the tier 3 is Ultimate Bone Shrapnel. Critical shots detonate the enemy's bones and turning them into a shrapnel that deals 370,000 damage and inflicts bleed on enemies within a 5 meter radius, cooldown of 3 seconds. So this is kind of similar to the mod we just went over, except this one does have a cooldown on it and inflicts bleed on everything that gets hit by the explosion. Now again, not certain if this is every critical shot. This one having a cooldown makes me think that it's a guarantee that every critical shot would cause the effect, but I'm not certain how that's going to translate to mods that don't have a cooldown, because it seems like that would be something that they would have a proc chance instead of a 100% chance off a critical hit. And this one can definitely synergize really well with Devastators because they have a skill tree that is pretty much all about buffing up bleeds. So this, with a Devastator with that build, could be incredibly strong. Then the other mod is Bleeding Bullets. Shots inflict bleed on enemies, cooldown of 8 seconds. Next up, we have the ANOMALY, legendary automatic shotgun, and the tier 3 is Moaning Winds. Reloading creates a strong blast around you, dealing 16,000 damage to enemies radius in a range of 8 meters, cooldown of 2 seconds. Now this one seems pretty unique because majority of the other mods I've seen that deal damage have a cap of 5 meters. I don't think I've seen any other ones that go over 5 meters, and this one is 8 meters and seems to do decent damage, not as much as a lot of the other mods, but it's only a cooldown of 2 seconds, and the radius is so massive on this that it's going to hit a ton of enemies. So if there's any weapon or any builds that have extremely quick reloads, you could possibly see a build where you just shoot a shot and reload and constantly do that to constantly proc this because it's such a big area. And this weapon does kind of line up with having the cooldown on this because the reload of this weapon is also a 2-second reload. And I'm wondering how it's going to proc, if it's going to proc right when you click reload and do it before the animation of the weapon goes off, or if it's going to do it once the weapon actually has the reload done. That's a pretty big difference in how you're going to be able to use this. Then the other mod is Anomaly Surge. Crits spawn an Anomaly Surge blast that deals 5,000 damage in a 1.5 meter radius. And then finally we have the Juggler Legendary Assault Rifle, and the tier 3 is Scrap Grenade. The first shot after reloading becomes an anomaly projectile doing 250,000 damage in a 5 meter radius. So this is pretty similar to some of the other tier 3 mods in that it's pretty much just a big explosion on the proc of the mod effect, but this one is actually a little bit more controllable because it's the first shot after reloading. So this could also be a situation where you pretty much have the gameplay of getting as fast as a reload as you possibly can, shooting one shot and then reloading to constantly keep proccing this big damage explosion effect. And then for the other mod we have Minefield. Killing shots spawn explosions around your target. Each deals 370,000 damage in a 5 meter radius. Now this tier 3 mod actually seems extremely strong because this spawns a minefield that all deal a really high amount of damage. So it pretty much pops out a ton of mines around an enemy you kill that all deal a ton of damage in a decent radius. So this tier 2 mod is definitely something to look out for. This honestly seems stronger than a good amount of the tier 3 mods that I've seen so far. So that's all the leaked weapons I wanted to go over today. So subscribe if you want to see more Outriders or other videos. Leave a like if you liked the video. If you comment down below what you guys think about these leaked weapons. And thanks for watching.